What is going on, YouTube? So coming back with day 3 of my NBA player rankings for 2016. So yesterday I had shooting guards, the day before the point guard. So yes, today I am doing small forwards. So like I mentioned in the last 2 videos, there's obviously some players that are kind of multi-positioned, and I had one guy comment on my shooting guard video about Jimmy Butler not being in there, and obviously I don't consider Jimmy Butler. I really consider him more of a small forward than a shooting guard, so that's why he was not on there. You'll be on this one. So, moving to my honorable mentions, 3 outside. So, first one, I have Ryan Anderson, a guy who has really been a breakthrough player for the Pelicans this year. A guy who's been a major source of trade talk, but at the same time, I don't think the Pelicans are ready to get rid of him. He's averaging about 6 rebounds, 1 assist, which isn't great, but 17.2 points per game this year. Like I said, he's been a breakthrough player, been a pretty efficient player this year as well, and in my opinion, just outside the top 10, which at the beginning of the year I don't think he was even close, to be honest. So, move on to my next one, and I've got Tobias Harris. So, Tobias Harris, to me, has had an up-and-down career. He's a guy that is very talented. He's a good scorer, but he's had an up-and-down year. Recently, he's been pretty consistent, averaging around 13 to 14 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and guy who's been a pretty solid guy at the small forward or power forward position. Normally small forward, though I consider him more of a small forward for the Orlando Magic, a team that's been also up and down this year. A team that to me has got a lot of talent, but just has to. Seems like they got to find the right identity, which has been a huge problem over the last couple of years. Alright, so move on to my last on the honorable mentions. And I have Tyreke Evans, and he is currently injured. He's been injured since about the end of January, and he's missed about 5 games now. But for me, while he's been healthy, Tyreke Evans has been very, very good this year. At least better than Tyreke Evans normally is. He's averaging around 7 assists per game, 5 rebounds, 15 points. And like I said, before he got injured, he was doing pretty well. He had a pretty good beginning to the season as well. This is a guy that qualifies really as a small forward or a shooting guard, but for me, again, more of a small forward. And obviously a guy who's extremely talented. I believe he won Rookie of the Year back in, I want to say 2010. Might have been 2011. So move on to my top 10, and at number 10, I've got Boston Celtics small forward, and that is Jae Crowder. So Jae Crowder's really been a breakthrough this year, efficiency-wise and just importance to the team. I'd say he's higher than 10, but just stats-wise, this is where he belongs for me. And he's averaging about 5 rebounds, 2 assists, about 2 steals, and 14 points per game. Like I said, he's been extremely, extremely good for the Celtics this year. One of the places I've been looking more of for just rankings recently has been Bleacher Report, and they have Jae Crowder extremely high, sometimes considering him a superstar, and like I said, importance to the team maybe, but stats-wise he's obviously not there yet. But like I said, I have props to Jae Crowder this year. He's been extremely good, much like Ryan Anderson broke through in a big way. Not to say he was bad before, I mean, just doing better. Alright, so move on to my number 9 player, and I've got the very good scorer, small forward for the Denver Nuggets, and that's Danilo Gallinari. So he's averaging between 19 and 20 points per game this year. He's been very, very solid of late, including a 29-point effort tonight. But he's averaging about 3 assists, 5 to 6 rebounds per game. And like I said, a guy that's having a Danilo Gallinari-esque year when he's healthy. To me, he's probably the prime scorer for the Nuggets right now. This is a team that's extremely short-handed, a team that relies very heavily on Gallinari and Kenneth Faried, but also a team that I think needs to find an identity, but that's outside of the fact of Danilo Gallinari. Like I said, he's one of the better scorers on this list. Alright, so move on to my number 8, and I've got another guy who I think got injured tonight, and that is Rudy Gay. So Rudy Gay is averaging about 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 18 points per game. Again, another guy that's been having an up and down year. had a little bit of injury trouble since the beginning of 2016, which is unfortunate, and probably maybe bumped him down a little bit on the list. But as a whole, I think he's right about right where he belongs, and the guy's been a good veteran in the league for a couple of years now, and one of the more solid pieces of the Sacramento Kings. Alright, so move on to number 7, and I've got the small forward for the Milwaukee Bucks, and that is Chris Middleton. So Chris Middleton, I think, broke out last year, but has had another good year this year, averaging about 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, and 18 points per game. And like I said, he's been a very, very good shooter. Had a few rough shooting nights lately, but as a whole, shooting 43% for the year, 87% from the line, averaging about 2 threes per game. He's got, he can stretch the floor pretty well. He's got a decent mid-range pull-up, and also can hit it from deep. Like I said, a little bit off on his shooting game recently, which might have bumped down his percentage a little bit. But as a whole, he's had a pretty solid year. Alright, so at number, I believe it is 6, I've got the small forward / power forward, also for the Milwaukee Bucks, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Chris Middleton normally takes the role more of shooting guard, but again, I consider both these guys more small forwards. So Antetokounmpo's, for me, had the year that he finally is needed to have for a while now. He's an extremely talented kid and really just gets better by the year. The Bucks were a team that had big expectations this year, pretty talented team top to bottom, and what I still think will be a playoff team in the East, actually the team that broke the Warriors streak. It was 27 or 28 straight, and like I said, a guy that is getting better as the years go along, and a guy that I can see that will keep climbing up this list. He's averaging about 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and 16 points. So he's putting up numbers really all over the stat sheet for a Bucks team that doesn't do really so hot right now. Not a big Bucks fan, so really I haven't been paying attention to them too much. But yeah, they're about 16 games out of first place, so playoff chances look a little bit slim. But maybe a hot streak to end the season could sneak them into the lower half of the playoffs. All right, so number 5, got a guy who hasn't been extremely great this year. Kind of got removed as being the prime player in New York, but nonetheless, it is Carmelo Anthony. And Carmelo Anthony, to me, obviously, has kind of been bumped out by Kristaps Porzingis as the focus of the Knicks. And he's had a rough year shooting. Right around, I mean, not a guy that's ever been an exceptionally efficient shooter in the last couple of years, but his offense has dropped a little bit. He's averaging around 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 21 points, shooting around 42%. So again, numbers have dropped, but for me, he's still a top 5 small forward in the game, at least for the time being. So move on to my number 4, and I've got a small forward for the Chicago Bulls, Jimmy Butler. So Jimmy Butler, to me, has taken, to pretty much most people, has taken over the main role as the star in Chicago. Derrick Rose has been looking actually pretty Derrick Rose-ish of late, but again, it's something that you see long-term going away. That's just kind of the way Derrick Rose is now. An up-and-down player, really ever since those constant nagging bad knee injuries. But Jimmy Butler's averaging around 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, 4 assists, and 22 to 23 points per game, and a little bit all over the stat sheet. He's also a pretty efficient shooter, shooting around 46%. Alright, so move on to number 3, and this is where it starts getting really, really good, and I have the small forward from San Antonio, probably the Spurs' best player right now, and that is Kawhi Leonard. So Kawhi Leonard's been big this year. Like, to me, he's the future of the Spurs. I think to most people it's that way. LaMarcus Aldridge, you could say, is also very good on the Spurs, but Kawhi Leonard's pretty much the clear-cut face of the franchise now. They still got a lot of players left that have been the faces over the last couple years, but like I said, it's Kawhi time at this point. Averaging about 20 points per game, 1 block, 2 steals, between 2 and 3 assists, and 7 rebounds. And like I said, a guy to me that is one of the top 3 small forwards in the league, and a guy in 5 years who could probably be the best small forward in the league, with Kevin Durant and LeBron James maybe getting a little bit older. So, actually, I think Kawhi Leonard's about the same age as Kevin Durant, maybe a little bit younger. Anyway, move on to my number 2, and I've got LeBron James. So, I mean, statistics-wise, it's been kind of a rough year for LeBron. I mean, Cavs have been looking better of late, but LeBron averaging around 25 points per game, about one to two assists, or 1 to 2 steals, excuse me, 6 assists and 7 rebounds. Statistics-wise, he's kind of dropped out of being a top 5 player in the NBA. He's not really an MVP candidate this year. I mean, obviously still one of the best players in the league, just talent-wise, maybe the most athletic. But, again, a guy to me that, with the struggles of the big three in Cleveland, his stats have kind of gone with it, gone downhill with it. So, move on to my number 1, and it's pretty obvious at this point. I've got Kevin Durant putting up monster stats this year. It's cool to see vintage Kevin Durant. Well, I wouldn't really say vintage, but back after a rough year last year, averaging right around 27 to 28 points per game, shooting over 50%, which is obviously very good. Leading an OKC team that's probably one of the top 3 or 4 best teams in the league. Had a big night 2 nights ago against Orlando, 37 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 8 rebounds, about 5 assists per game. And like I said, guy's been incredibly good for the Thunder this year, leading a Thunder team that you want to say is a championship contender, but championship contender kind of takes away from the fact that the Golden State Warriors are such overwhelming favorites right now, just because every time you think there's going to be a big matchup between them and like the Cavs, Spurs, or Thunder, it just ends up not being that close. And I mean, sometimes I just wish that, like, I think every basketball fan wishes this, but just have a little bit more competition. Just one of those teams show up, beat them, and make it a little bit more interesting heading into the final stretch run of the year and the playoffs. Almost here at All-Star break, though. But anyway, that will conclude my top 10 shooting guards. And only got, I think, officially halfway through the series now. So, obviously coming back tomorrow with power forwards, centers day after that, and then it is probably going to be my top 50 rankings after that. So that's pretty much it. Say, what's going on, YouTube? So earlier today, I started my new series, which was my daily top 10, and I did the top 10 NFL fan bases. So I wanted to start another series that I said I was going to do, and that is my ranking series. So basically, I'm going to do the